Hi guys, I'm Fumi, Cake Station Canada and Diary of a Niger Cakeist. In today's video, I want to quickly show you how to cover a square cake. I'm using dummy for this demonstration. I have a previous video where I used the round styrofoam dummy, and today I'm going to be using a square dummy. I'm also using the orange colored fondant because I feel the color contrast is going to help the visibility of this video and the clarity. So please, if you have not seen the previous video on round cake, you can check it. But today we are doing square cake. This is a very small square cake, about 5 inches, and this fondant is just going to be enough. I promise to do more videos where we use real cake, but let's start with dummy first. The first thing I want to show you is how to knead your fondant correctly. You want to avoid kneading your fondant where you pull it out and you're folding it in and it's all over the place. Just hold your fondant close and just knead close to yourself. Knead close to yourself. You don't need to stretch it or drag it. That's going to allow hair get trapped in, which is not what you want. So right way is just kind of try to get it as smooth as possible. Push all the folds under and do that. I started just doing this. Make sure all the folds are right under and get your ball ready. Now for square cake, the good thing is I believe square cake is easier than round cake. Some people disagree, but it's okay. I'll be dusting my table with cornstarch. You can use icing sugar if that's your preference. Anyone work fine. My fondant is kind of firm. I'm panting from kneading fondant. My fondant is firm, and that's the kind of fondant that works best for this paneling method. I'll be using shortening to rub my styrofoam dummy. It just helps the fondant to stick to the dummy. So when I'm ready to start placing the fondant panels on my dummy, I'll rub each of the panels. These are the panels, like this side, this side, this side, this side, this side. So I have 5 kind of panels, the top and the 4 side panels. So when I'm ready, I'm going to just rub the shortening before placing the fondant over it. This is a dummy, and sometimes dummy is more difficult to cover in the sense that it's so light, and because it doesn't have a weight, it kind of shifts up and down. But I'll find a way around it, and you see that just soon. Now I'm going to just roll my fondant. I'll roll my fondant into the 5 panels that I need. I can do that at once or maybe twice in 2 rows. How thick, how thin should your fondant be? Sincerely, it depends on a lot of things. If your cake is really firm, like let's say you used a chocolate ganache to cover your cake, it's going to be really firm and hard. In that case, you can use a very thin fondant roll to cover your cake. But if you've ganached with a buttercream, you may have a cake that is not so firm, and the thicker fondant would work. Another thing, it depends on practice. Over time, I've been able to reduce the thickness of my fondant. It comes with practice. So with time, you can start with the thick one, but with time you'll be able to work with very little fondant to cover a whole cake. When rolling your fondant, you want to try and roll as even as possible. It's something you have to practice. You don't want your fondant thick on one side and flat on the other side, so you don't have an even thickness. If you're using your rolling pin and not a fondant sheeter, you want to practice that. My cake is really small, or my dummy is really small, so I'm going to just get the whole 5, maybe 4 at once. So this is 2 panel over here. Then can I get 3 from here? Let's see. 1, so this is my top. Then I have one side, another side. So let's see how that goes. If I need to roll again, I'm going to roll again. So I have my panels here. I'll just keep them. So this is my dummy. Don't forget, I'm using shortening to secure my dummy, to secure my fondant to the dummy. So I'll just apply vegetable shortening on the top. Since I'm starting with the top, I'll do just the top for now. I noticed that the shortening kind of soaks in or disappears somehow after a while, so I won't do all the side yet. So I'll just place my fondant, the rolled out fondant, on top, and with a smoother I'll secure that. I have to get a board now. I like to walk upside down. You know, some people can walk this way and trim their fondants like this, but the way I'm used to, especially because you have different consistencies of fondant and we all have different stages in working with fondant. If you're a starter, I really advise you walk upside down. It's a lot easier to get perfection when you walk upside down. So this is what you need to do. You hold your dummy or your cake this way and you just cut straight. You hold your cake down to the board so that it doesn't shift, and cut straight. So if you look at what we have the top perfectly done. A perfect square top. So after having done my top, I'm going to go over to my side panels. And for the side panels, we are going to go opposite side first, then opposite side last. You don't go 1, 2, 3, 4. You go 1, 2, then 3, 4. Then the last two sides will be your front and back. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. A very good thing and interesting thing about panetted square cake is you can actually have like 5 different colors, or you have the top maybe in orange, then the sides in white, because they are individual panels. That's just by the side. So I'm going to work with opposite sides. Don't forget, I already have my fondant cut out, and now I can rub the shortening on the side of the dummy. If it's a real cake, you don't need to rub shortening, of course. If I use buttercream to ganache my cake, I sometimes spray water on the cake to make the fondant stick. That's if the buttercream is already kind of dried out. But in this case, I'm just going to rub shortening on the side to secure the fondant. Another thing you can do is to put water on the fondant part so that that part sticks very well. So because I'm working with 2 opposite sides, well, let's do this first. So I'm just going to position my fondant. Let me hope the sheets I rolled are enough. So I have this side, for instance. Oh, I like to work upside down, so I'm going to flip my cake back upside down. It's sweeter, it's easier, trust me. Working upside down, it's a lot easier. So I'm going to place my side panel, the first side panel, aligning it with, this is why upside down is sweeter, because you have like the sharp edges from the fondant contacting the board. It just makes an automatic kind of sharp edge than trying to cut that part with knife. You may not have it super sharp. So I place my first side panel like that. Then I rub shortening on the opposite side. So I'm going to be working on this side now. I'm going to rub shortening on this side. I avoid putting water avoid putting water while your cake is upside down, because the water may have your fondant sticking to the board. So anytime I need to add water, I flip back up. But I think I have enough shortening there, so I don't need to bother about water. So I'll just pick my other panel and fix it like that. So I have the 2 opposite panels fixed. Then with your smoother, you make it sharp against the board. So this is why I think square cakes are easier. It's more like I'm arranging something. I don't have to, manage the fondant. In the round cake, you have to manage your fondant, control it from not falling or making a mess. Square cake looks a lot easier. So I'm going to trim off the excesses carefully. Because this is a dummy, it might want to be shifting up and down. Put a weight to keep the fondant from shifting all over the place. I'll put a weight like that. So let's start with the side. I really hope you can see what I'm doing. This is the side. I'm going to cut all straight up. Can you see that? So you can just kind of smoothen it with the side also, so everything aligns. Then I'm going to do the same thing for this side. I know you may not see what I'm doing, but it's just the same way I did the first one. Cut all the way up. If your fondant is firm, it's a lot easier. This fondant is firm, so I'm enjoying my work. If your fondant is not firm, you may have little challenge of your fondant dragging as you're trying to cut it. It's just all stretchy, and that's why the consistency of fondant for this method of covering cake is very important. You need a fondant that is firm. There are different brands of fondant out there. Some are firm, some are soft, some are in between. So the best fondant for paneling method is a very firm fondant. So I'm just going to keep cutting. Make sure your knife is always clean. It helps you to get a very clean, sharp cut also. I like to cut from inside. Some people get razor and just cut straight down. This is my preference. I just like to do this straight up like that. So with your smoother, you just kind of tidy up the sides and do the same thing for every of your side. So I have all the 4 sides done. I'm going to do for the top of my cake. How do you get to see that? Like this. The same thing for this side. If your fondant is soft, it's not as simple as it looks if your fondant is soft. So I have the 4 sides properly done. I'm going to do the other 2 sides. So I said the first 2 sides, the last 2 sides are going to be your front and back. This is what the top of my cake looks like. Look at the one I used water. Look at the one I used shortening. So water is actually better to give it that seamless finish. So I'm going to do for the 2 other sides, rub some shortening. So this time around, I'm going to use water for all the parts that are fondant. So I'm just going to touch water on them. And I'm doing that while the cake is upwards before I flip, so that the water does not make your fondant to stick to your cake board. So I have 2 more fondants to go. This is kind of too big, so I'll just reduce it a little. Do I have enough? Oh my god. Okay, I have enough, but it's just my preference. So you can check if you prefer to work upwards, fine, or I just like the feel of working downwards. So secure that properly with your smoother. Touch down on all the 4 sides, the part that has fondant, make sure it's fitting. This is keeping, if you can see it, so you need to push it down so that it touches the board. That's where the sharp edge comes from. Then the last side, I just pray I have enough fondant. This is my last piece of fondant. Okay, it's enough. So I'm just going to fix this here. My fondant is sticking to the board, so I'll apply some cornstarch. So I have my 4 panels covered, and this is what the inside looks like. So I can see from here that the fondants are not contacting well. I can just push it a little bit so that everywhere is, you know, looking all tidied up. So I have my 4 sides done. I'm just going to trim off my excesses, and that would just be all. So with a clean knife and a smoother, I'll just take off all my excess. This is our front and back, so we want to be as, you know, as neat and careful as we can be. Let me start with the tops. I know you can't see me right now, but I'll turn it shortly. So this is how you trim your top. I find it easier working this way, but then so I'll just cut straight. So I have the tops done. Then now I'm going to do the sides. Make sure your knife is clean always. So I'm going to hold it tight and cut straight up. This thing is going to shift, so I'm securing with this weight just because I don't have a real cake. If it's a real cake, the weight will be just enough to keep your cake in place. Notice the way I'm not going straight. I have to like slide this way. It's just to have a clean cut. Sometimes if your fondant is not so firm, it's kind of pulls if you keep pulling like that. So when you start cutting, by the time you get almost up, just go down. Don't continue that movement. So this is it. You go, then you go down, not just cut straight. So when you just cut straight, your fondant is going to pull out like what you have here, and it can be serious than that. So that's just an hack there. It's looking easy because I have been doing it. You may face some challenges when you're doing yours, so I'm mentioning some of those things that you're likely to encounter. So I'll do for this other side. So when you start cutting, you cut straight. Then when you're almost up, you just go backwards, lean against the smoother. That way it reduces the pulling out of the fondant. And make sure you are holding your knife tight against this. You can feel this hard surface. I didn't do that, and that's why this bottom side is looking not clean. Look at what it looks like. So you have to ensure that you hold your knife tight. You can feel it tight against the board. That's how you have a very neat cut. I get questions like, can I cut this way? Yes, if you're using a razor, you can just kind of cut this way just cut. But if I try that now, I don't know, my fondants may not come out. I don't like the result when I do that. But if I have a razor, I can just cut down straight. If I try that with a knife, look at what's happening. My fondant is bending, so I won't do that with a knife. So with a knife, it's always this way. You can't see the side. Can I make you see it? So I'm just going to cut. This is not convenient for me, but I'm trying to make the video as clear as possible. Be conscious of your cake also. I just dented my cake here. Then the last one, so the finished work is going to be a smoother thing. You just use your smoother to tidy up any parts you need to tidy up. Okay, so now I have all my sides covered. Now I work with smoother to just get it as perfect as I can. Let's see what it looks like. So this is what our cake looks like on the other side. So like I said about the front and back, if you look at this cake, these are the first two sides we did, and we can see the panels. So to avoid the visibility of these panels, that's why I like to have, I'm going to be using either of this other sides to be my front and my back. So you can check the best of those two, and that will be here. So I prefer these two sides than working with the side where the panels are visible. And that's about all about covering a square cake. It's so simple and easy, especially with the right texture of fondant. It's a perfectly covered square cake. So this is the view.